Humanity went berserk after the Galactic Council pushed too far. Oh, greetings, spacefaring sentience. Dorban Quilx here, Senior Administrative Officer, or as you might say, professional paper pusher for the Galactic Council's Department of Interspecies Relations. Well, former officer, I should say. It's hard to maintain employment when your employer has been, shall we say, forcibly restructured. 253 standard cycles ago, the primate-descended bipeds from that unremarkable blue-green world they call Earth stumbled onto the galactic stage. You've never seen such a commotion. They arrived in a patchwork vessel that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and optimism, which, as we later discovered, wasn't far from the truth. Just give them the standard integration package, High Chancellor Vorman said at the time. They'll be like the Plutonians, happy to trade their resources for our technology and protection. Hey, if only we'd known. If only we had known. Within 30 cycles, humans had reverse-engineered our entry-level tech. Within 50, they'd improved it. By the centennial celebration of their admission to the Council, human innovations were being traded across 17 sectors. Most species take a millennium to achieve that level of integration. They don't follow predictable behavior patterns, complained scientist Superior Bleck during one particularly heated council session I had the misfortune of recording. Their decisions are based on too many variables. Sometimes they choose based on logic, sometimes on emotion, sometimes on these cultural references that make absolutely no sense. That was the problem, you see. Humans weren't like the mathematically predictable Arcturians or the strictly hierarchical Zentari. They were messy, unpredictable, frustrating. And they were everywhere. Their adaptability let them thrive in environments that would kill most species. Their bizarre ability to form alliances with virtually any sentient race gave them diplomatic reach beyond their numbers. Their strange mix of cooperation and competition drove innovation at rates that made the ancient Vulgorian Empire look positively glacial. The final straw came when 3 human corporations partnered with Delvian engineers to create a revolutionary faster-than-light drive that didn't require the rare minerals the Council had been using to control expansion for millennia. That's when the whispers started among the founding races. That's when the closed-door meetings began. That's when I was tasked with documenting Containment Strategy 7J, a comprehensive plan to put humans back in their appropriate place in the galactic hierarchy. As I sit here now, watching the aftermath unfold, I can't help but laugh. Because if there's one thing the Council failed to understand about humans, it's this: they don't stay in any place you put them. Especially when you push them too far. And push them we did. May the cosmic forces forgive our monumental stupidity. I still remember that fateful meeting in the Grand Spire's obsidian chamber. 57 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, all crammed into a room designed to block any form of surveillance. My presence was purely functional. Someone had to record the proceedings for the historical archives. Lucky me. Admiral Pulsar, with his 4 arms crossed in that self-important stance he was so fond of, dominated the center of the room. His metallic scales gleamed under the chamber's dim lighting as he activated a holographic display of human expansion. Esteemed council members, he began, his voice booming with unearned confidence. The human contagion has spread far enough. In 2 centuries, they've colonized 37 systems. 37. The Merovians took 12 millennia to settle half that number. Representative Tula of the Pleiadian Consortium raised a tentacle. Some of my people have found human innovation quite refreshing. Several council members gasped at this near heresy. Their entertainment broadcasts alone have boosted our economy by 20%. Refreshing? High General Cruxex spat, his gelatinous form quivering with disgust. They're dangerous. My security analysts report humans can weaponize virtually anything. One of them disabled a Zentari battlecruiser with a mining tool and something called duct tape. Ambassador Neely, always the voice of reason, chimed in. Perhaps we're overreacting. Humans have been largely cooperative and Cooperative? Pulsar's secondary arms slammed the table. They cooperate only when it suits them. When it doesn't, they find loopholes, they bend rules, he shuddered dramatically, they improvise. And there it was, the real crime. Improvisation doesn't fit neatly into thousand-year plans. Pulsar unveiled the strategy with all the subtlety of a supernova. A coordinated safety inspection initiative targeting human colonies, effectively establishing a blockade. Resource restrictions under the guise of equitable distribution. Technology transfer limitations citing cultural preservation concerns. It was bureaucratic brilliance, really. Nothing overtly hostile, just layer upon layer of restrictions designed to slowly strangle human expansion while maintaining plausible deniability. Throughout the presentation, I kept thinking about Major Kavya Ellis, the human security liaison I'd worked with during the Proxima incident. How she'd look at this plan, shake her head, and say in that peculiar Earth idiom, well, that's going to backfire spectacularly. As I recorded the unanimous vote approving Operation Humble Horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't putting humans in their place. We were backing them into a corner. And as I would soon learn, that's exactly where humans become most creative. The first safety inspection blockade went up around New Anchorage Colony in the Tau Ceti system. The second appeared at Prosperity Station near Epsilon Indi. By the end of the lunar cycle, 15 human settlements found themselves surrounded by council ships ensuring regulatory compliance. The official human response was, to put it mildly, boringly diplomatic. Formal protests filed in triplicate, requests for clarification, proposals for joint inspection teams, appeals to existing treaties. Look at them scramble with their paperwork, Admiral Pulsar remarked during a progress briefing. All bark, no bite, as they say in their primitive idioms. The council chambers practically buzzed with smug satisfaction. The carefully orchestrated campaign was proceeding exactly as planned. Supply shortages were already reported in the outer colonies. Human expansion projects had ground to a halt. Their much-vaunted corporate alliances were beginning to fracture under pressure. And then she walked in. Ambassador Tessa Blackwood, Earth's newly appointed diplomatic representative. Standing barely 5 feet tall with striking auburn hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything simultaneously. My first thought was that she looked remarkably young for such a position. My second thought, as she began speaking, was that youth had nothing to do with capability. Distinguished council members, she began, her voice calm but carrying an undertone that made several members shift uncomfortably. I appreciate the opportunity to address you directly regarding the recent precautionary measures. What followed was the most masterfully constructed diplomatic rebuke I've ever witnessed. Never raising her voice, never making an overtly hostile statement, Ambassador Blackwood systematically dismantled the pretense of the blockade while outlining the specific treaty violations involved. We understand the Council's concerns, she concluded with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. However, I feel obligated to point out that Article 7 of the Galactic Charter explicitly prohibits economic isolation tactics against member species. This puts us in an awkward position. Chancellor Vorman's face tentacles curled in dismissal. These are standard safety protocols, Ambassador, nothing more. Of course, Blackwood nodded pleasantly. Then you wouldn't object to similar protocols being implemented around Zentari shipping hubs. For safety reasons, naturally. The chamber erupted in outrage. The mere suggestion that humans might blockade one of the founding races was unprecedented. This meeting is adjourned, Vorman announced, cutting off the chaos. The Council will not be threatened by a junior species. As the chamber emptied, Ambassador Blackwood approached me, somehow knowing my role in recording the proceedings. They're making a mistake, she said quietly. We don't want conflict. But I need you to understand something about humans, Dorban Quilx. Patience isn't the same as weakness. I should have listened more carefully. We all should have. But 3 days later, When Council forces seized the human science vessel Copernicus claiming restricted research violations, any chance for peaceful resolution evaporated. The Copernicus, as we would later learn, wasn't just any science vessel. It carried 16 families, including 34 children, relocating to a research outpost. And if there's one thing humans are universally, terrifyingly protective of, it's their young. Precisely 12 days after the Copernicus incident, the blockade ship Indomitable vanished from its position around New Anchorage. No distress signal, no debris field, no radiation signature, just gone. 3 days later, the same thing happened to the Resolute near Epsilon Indi. Then the Arbiter at Proxima Centauri. Within 2 weeks, 7 Council enforcement vessels had simply disappeared without a trace. The human response? Pure. Butter wouldn't melt in their mouths' innocence. We share the Council's concern regarding these troubling disappearances, announced Ambassador Blackwood in a public statement. Earth extends its full cooperation in locating the missing vessels and crews. Admiral Polzar was apoplectic. They're mocking us. They're clearly behind this. That's the problem with a reputation for deviousness. When something devious happens, everyone assumes it's you. Even if it actually is you, the assumption somehow makes it more irritating. The Council scrambled to replace the missing blockade vessels while launching a formal investigation headed by Commander Luzak of the Vexaran Security Force. Luzak, a tall, four-eyed being with skin like polished obsidian, was known for his methodical approach. I was assigned as his administrative liaison, which meant I had a front-row seat to what happened next. Our investigation ship, the Swift Judgment, arrived at New Anchorage expecting to find a colony struggling under restricted supplies. Instead, we found business as usual, mining operations continuing, construction projects advancing, civilian traffic flowing smoothly. "This is impossible," Luzak muttered, his secondary eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. "They should be 3 weeks into resource shortages by now." The colony administrator, a jovial human named Marcus Patel, greeted us with infuriating pleasantness. "Welcome to New Anchorage. How can we assist the Council's investigation?" "Your settlement should be experiencing significant supply disruptions," Luzak stated flatly. "Explain how you're continuing normal operations." Patel smiled. "Oh, we've had to make some adjustments, certainly. But humans are quite adaptable, Commander." "Adaptable enough to make starships disappear?" Luzak countered. Patel's expression grew serious. "We filed 17 formal protests regarding the illegal blockade, Commander. However, we categorically deny any involvement in the disappearance of Council vessels. Violence isn't our way." The same scene played out at colony after colony. No signs of distress, no admission of involvement. But most disturbing of all, no explanation for how they were maintaining operations despite our blockade. During our 6th colony inspection, I noticed something odd: the manufacturing date on a crate of medical supplies. It had been produced after the blockade began. "Commander," I said quietly, "these colonies aren't just surviving the blockade. They're completely bypassing it." That night, our long-range scanners detected unusual energy signatures in supposedly empty regions of space near human territories. When we altered course to investigate, the readings vanished. "They've developed some kind of cloaking technology," Luzak concluded grimly, "and a parallel supply network we knew nothing about." "How long would it take to build something like that?" I asked. "Years," he replied. "Perhaps decades." The implications were unsettling. While publicly cooperating with the Council for centuries, humans had been quietly preparing for the possibility that cooperation might end. The blockade hadn't caught them unprepared. It had merely confirmed their suspicions. Commander Luzak's report back to the Council was blunt. "Humans have sophisticated contingency infrastructure in place. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment." Admiral Polzar, naturally, drew exactly the wrong conclusion. This confirms they were planning aggression all along. We must strike decisively before they mobilize. And that, dear listeners, is how I found myself aboard the Council flagship Inevitable Triumph as part of an enhanced containment task force. Our mission: intercept an unregistered transport suspected of carrying military assets to new anchorage. The transport in question, the Starlight Horizon, was a converted passenger liner. Large, ungainly, with minimal defensive capabilities. Our sensors detected approximately 200 life forms aboard. When ordered to heave to for inspection, they responded with a polite request to proceed as they were carrying time-sensitive medical equipment. A likely story, sneered Fleet Captain Dorban. Target their propulsion systems. We'll board and confiscate whatever weapons they're smuggling. I remember thinking how odd it was that a smuggler would announce their presence so openly. But I said nothing. The mindless bureaucrat, faithfully recording the inevitable triumph of Council authority. That's what they expected, so that's what I gave them. The first volley from our forward batteries struck the Starlight Horizon's engine section. Standard procedure for a boarding operation. What wasn't standard was the ship's reactor containment failing catastrophically. Impossible, muttered our weapons officer. That was a precision strike. As the crippled transport tumbled through space, we received a transmission. Not from their captain, but from their passenger compartment. The visual showed a human female clutching a small child. Behind her, dozens of other humans, many of them children, huddled in emergency pressure suits. "This is Dr. Eliana Mercer of the Starlight Horizon," she said, her voice remarkably steady despite the alarms blaring around her. "We are a civilian transport carrying 108 families relocating to new anchorage. We have 43 children under the age of 10 aboard. Our reactor containment is failing. We need immediate assistance." The bridge fell silent. Captain Dorban's face drained of color, his mandibles twitching nervously. "Scan them again," he ordered. "Find the weapons." The scan results only confirmed the initial transmission. No weapons, no military personnel, just families, medical supplies, and agricultural equipment. As the Starlight Horizon's distress call echoed through our ship, I did something I'd never done in 300 years of Council service. I broke protocol. "Captain," I said, stepping forward, "we must render assistance immediately. This is a civilian vessel." The look Dorban gave me still haunts my nightmares. Not anger, not annoyance, just cold calculation. "No," he said quietly, "no witnesses." I wish I could say I heroically stopped what happened next. I didn't. I stood frozen as Captain Dorban ordered all weapons to fire. I watched in horror as the Starlight Horizon broke apart, emergency pods scattering like seeds from a dying plant. What nobody realized until too late was that Dr. Mercer's transmission hadn't just been directed to us. She'd broadcast on all standard emergency frequencies. Every ship within 3 light years received that call for help. Every colony, every trading post, every independent vessel. And they all saw what happened next. The Council claimed it was an accident, that the Starlight Horizon's reactor was already unstable, that all attempts at rescue had been made. Nobody believed it, not even me. 6 hours later, Earth's response arrived simultaneously at every Council facility across the galaxy. The message was exactly 3 sentences long. The United Earth Alliance hereby formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All Council personnel and vessels are ordered to leave human territory within 24 hours. There will be no further diplomatic communication on this matter. As we hurriedly prepared to depart the system, I noticed something unsettling on our long-range scanners. Ships, hundreds of them, appearing out of nowhere as if their cloaking systems had been simultaneously deactivated, surrounding not just new anchorage, but every human colony we'd blockaded. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were forming battle lines, and they were waiting for us to make the next move. The next 72 hours redefined warfare in the galactic community. We barely made it back to Outpost Vigilance, one of the Council's primary military installations in the sector. The moment our ship docked, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Multiple unknown vessels approaching, announced the automated defense system. Identification protocols failing. Commander Vex, the station's security chief, rushed to the command center with me following close behind. The sensor display showed dozens of ships appearing seemingly from nowhere, their profiles unlike any known human vessel. "That's impossible," Vex muttered. "Our intelligence has comprehensive data on all human military assets." Ah, the confidence of the woefully uninformed. It would have been amusing if we weren't all about to die. The first attack came with surgical precision. Not against our weapons systems or shields as expected, but targeting our long-range communication array. Then our sensor grid. Then our engine control systems. Within minutes, Outpost Vigilance, a fortress that had stood for 7 centuries, was deaf, blind, and immobile. And they hadn't fired a single shot. "How are they doing this?" Vex demanded, pounding his control panel in frustration. That's when our primary systems began shutting down one by one. Life support remained operational, but everything else from weapons to internal communications simply stopped responding. A single human ship, smaller than our standard patrol vessels, docked with the station. From my position near the security monitors, I watched as a team of humans in sleek combat armor methodically made their way through the outpost. They didn't fire unless fired upon, and their weapons emitted some kind of targeted electromagnetic pulse that rendered our troops unconscious rather than dead. When they reached the command center, their leader removed her helmet, revealing a face that bore a striking resemblance to Ambassador Blackwood. "I am Captain Mira Blackwood of the Earth Defense Force," she announced. "This installation is now under human control. Your personnel will not be harmed if they cooperate." While Vex sputtered indignantly, I connected the dots. "You're related to Ambassador Tessa Blackwood." Captain Blackwood's smile was cold. "My sister. Currently implementing this same scenario at 6 other Council installations." "6?" I gasped. "Simultaneously?" 27. Actually, she corrected. "We're being quite thorough." Reports began filtering in from across Council space. The massive Zintari dreadnought, infallible, pride of the Council fleet, disabled by drones smaller than shuttlecraft. The Arcturian defense network, famed for its impenetrable quantum encryption, sliced through as if it were children's code. The Council's supposedly secret shipyards in the Denabola system, captured without a single casualty. As Captain Blackwood established her command post, I finally gathered the courage to ask the question burning in my mind. "How long have you been planning this?" She glanced up from her holographic display. Operation Porcupine Contingency was established approximately 2 weeks after Earth joined the Council. 250 years ago? I couldn't hide my shock. "But you've been peaceful partners all this time." "Preparation isn't the same as intention," she replied. "We hoped never to implement this. Your Council forced our hand." Over the next few hours, I witnessed the unveiling of technologies humans had kept hidden for centuries. Quantum phase shields that made their ships nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. AI-driven electronic warfare systems that could penetrate any known defense. Propulsion technology that allowed their vessels to execute maneuvers that defied known physics. Why hide all this? I asked as we watched footage of human forces systematically neutralizing Council resistance throughout the galaxy. You could have dominated the Council from the beginning. Captain Blackwood looked genuinely perplexed by my question. Why would we want to dominate anyone? We just wanted to ensure we couldn't be dominated. There's a difference. That's when the realization hit me like a quantum torpedo. Humans hadn't been planning for war. They'd been planning for exactly this scenario, a hostile galaxy turning against them. Every treaty they signed, every technology they shared, Every diplomatic courtesy they extended had been genuine. But beneath it all had been a simple, unwavering insurance policy, the capacity to fight back if betrayed. The Council had convinced itself that humans were a potential threat that needed containment. In doing so, we had created the very enemy we feared. As I watched the strategic display showing human forces securing key points throughout Council space, I remembered Ambassador Blackwood's words, "But patience isn't the same as weakness." No, indeed. As it turned out, patience was merely the velvet glove concealing an iron fist that had been clenched and ready for centuries, hoping never to strike, but prepared for the moment when it must. One standard galactic month after what humans now call the Horizon Incident, I found myself aboard the Earth flagship Deterrence, watching the signing of the new Interstellar Cooperative Accord. Gone was the hierarchical structure of the old Council, with its founding races and their implicit superiority. In its place stood a new coalition of equals, with humans holding significant influence not through dominance, but through the sheer number of allies they'd cultivated over the centuries. The various alien representatives looked simultaneously relieved and relieved that the humans had shown remarkable restraint in their victory, wary of the power they'd demonstrated. Not a single Council world had been bombarded. Not one civilian population targeted. Their strike had been exclusively against military and government installations, with remarkably few casualties. As the proceedings concluded, a tall, silver-haired human woman approached me. Her bearing was military, but her eyes carried the same analytical intensity I'd seen in both Ambassador Tessa and Captain Mira. "Dorban Quilx," she said without preamble. "I understand you were present during the Starlight Horizon incident." I straightened reflexively. "Admiral Blackwood, I presume?" "Correct." Her gaze was evaluating but not hostile. "I've read your testimony. You attempted to intervene." "Not effectively," I admitted, shame washing over me. "I should have done more." To my surprise, she nodded understanding rather than condemnation. "Fear paralyzes. I know this well. My question is, what will you do now?" The query caught me off guard. I'm just a bureaucrat. My position no longer exists. "Every new order needs those who understand the failures of the old," she replied. "Those with enough perspective to prevent history from repeating itself." That conversation led to my current role, Interspecies Liaison Officer for the newly formed Historical Truth and Reconciliation Commission. A fancy title for what amounts to documenting how spectacularly wrong things can go when species misunderstand each other. During one of our sessions, Admiral Blackwood revealed something that still haunts me. Operation Porcupine was never meant to be implemented, she explained. It was our insurance policy, our deterrent. We've maintained it for generations, hoping each generation would be the last to need it. "Then why all the secrecy?" I asked. "Why not simply demonstrate your capabilities as a warning?" Her laugh lacked humor. Would the Council have permitted our existence if they'd known what we were capable of? Would you have treated us as partners or as threats to be eliminated before we grew too powerful? I had no answer. She was right, of course. The irony is exquisite, really. The Council feared humans would disrupt the galactic order, so they provoked them into doing exactly that. They worried humans were secretly building weapons, so they created a situation where those weapons were actually needed. They tried to put humans in their place, only to discover humans had been quietly building their own place the entire time. As I complete this historical account, I'm reminded of an old human saying Admiral Blackwood shared with me, "Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it." The Council wished for humans to show their true nature. And oh, how thoroughly that wish was granted. The humans had a saying for that too: epic fail.